This video is a film study focused at what the Baltimore Ravens defensive line was able to do to Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals in Sunday's 24-0 victory. Look, that's the Ravens' first shutout of 2025 and only the second time all year that they've held an opposing offense to single digits. I think the defensive line set the tone. Not that the coverage aspect and the guys on the back end weren't effective and efficient, because they obviously were. But these guys played downhill. I'm talking about Draymond Jones, Travis Jones, Tavius Robinson, who provided a huge boost, Kyle Vanoi, Mike Green added a sack on the last play of the second quarter. The physicality they played with is what really reminded me of Ravens teams from the past. That's why I felt appropriate. It was appropriate in the reaction video to call this a throwback win. They beat up Joe Burrow and really took away their courage to continue to compete as the fourth quarter progressed. We'll get the film started here, and I'm really going to focus on pass rush situations, but I will give you at least one iteration of a run play. And in fact, it's the first snap of the game. It's a 21 personnel group by the Bengals. Actually, a somewhat unusual one. They have both Chase Brown and Perine in the game at the same time. 21 personnel group, kind of a unique scheme from the Bengals at least. Burrow reverse pivots. I'll give you the end zone angle of it. This receiver, I think, is Tinsley's going to motion across, and he's going to basically be trying to kick out Marlon Humphrey. But Draymond Jones absolutely dominates his matchup against the tight end. He was a bully yesterday against the run, against the pass. To me, Dre'Mont, the way that he played in Week 15 against the Bengals is like, can we re-sign this guy right now to ensure that he'll be on this roster in 2025? Look one-handed, and when you get the end zone angle, you'll see that he's peeking to the inside. So he's using his eyes to look to the inside to try to pick up or detect Chase Brown's path. And in this case, once Chase Brown cuts off tackle, Buchanan, before the injury, obviously, and Draymond Jones are there for the tackle. Really set the tone. Of course, we know the possession, lasted longer than this. Cincinnati was still able to hold on to the football for large stretches of time yesterday, despite getting shut out. End zone angle of the same play. Draymond Jones is right here, matched up, like I said, against Sample. And the scheme is really unusual. I mean, the off screen to our left is the receiver, Mitchell Tinsley, I should say. And it's kind of a counter step from Chase Brown. Watch Burrow's steps. This is very unusual. For them to use a spinner concept, first of all, some would call it a reverse pivot, but that's really, I would call that a spinner look. So you've got all this cross action with Tinsley going to kick Humphrey, Perine, the running back, going to go get, I believe that is Kyle Hamilton. And then Brown brings this back off tackle. Dre'Mont has his eyes inside. Why? Because he's totally in control of the rep. He's totally in control of the tight end, and so he's able to avert his eyes. If you're not winning by an appreciable margin, you're not able to oftentimes look and locate the football, I should say, and then shed to go make the tackle. He's a badass football player who plays the game, with a mean streak, and I thought it showed up yesterday. I'll show you two more plays here from that first possession for Cincinnati. So this is 3rd and 4. Of course, going to be Tavius Robinson's sack. He gets a free run. He basically gets a free run through the B gap. Something to notice about Burrow, and it does relate to a play that I'll show you a little bit later. He's, got his hands in the jersey pocket, whatever you want to call it, the whole time, and doesn't, pull them out until he's ready to snap the football. That makes sense, right? It's super cold there. There was very little attempts or fakes to take his hands out of the jersey. And the only reason I mention this is because, we coached our quarterbacks to do this at times in cold weather football, which means you're playing in the playoffs in high school. Take your hands out of the jersey pocket, go through some type of cadence, maybe even a hard count, and then put your hands back in. So you're giving the defense multiple looks at it. It actually kind of works out in Burrow's favor a little bit later, but this is the first example of how effective we were in a pass rush situation. Why? I think it's because the left guard, right guard, and the center go to deal with Travis Jones. They all three basically step to him, and it leaves a free rush, a free path for Tavius Robinson. They're chipping Draymond Jones off the edge, so that's the only thing that I can think, impacts this is that Orlando Brown is stepping to Draymond Jones. Perine is also working on Dre'Mont. The guard almost is acting as if he's expecting some help from Orlando Brown. Easy swat or slap of the hands by Tavius, who closed down. Really cool moment, man, to see him come back. He brings energy. He brings physicality. The tandem of him and Draymond Jones on the field at the same time is like, to me, it's like having two great defensive small forwards or great power forward. Those guys don't really exist at this point in the NBA, at least, but two great defensive forwards on the field at the same time because of their length, because of their ability to close space, and the way that they tackle in a physical manner. This is during the time, this is first possession, of course, but this is during the time when our offense is absolutely short-circuiting, right? So it's great that our defense got multiple stops on the first two possessions. This one ended up forcing Cincinnati to punt. We, of course, on our opening three drives, only generated 28 yards. Of course, we had the turnover that wasn't Lamar's fault. We're averaging 2.8 yards per play deep into the second quarter. We've moved to the second possession. Some of these cases, I'll only give you the end zone angle like the previous play and this one. Draymond Jones, quarterback pressure, quarterback hit, whatever you want to call it. A couple of things to note. Through the first time watching the film, just our defense, haven't watched our offense really at all at this point, a lot more organic four-man rushes. It's not that we didn't have guys mugged up or close to the line of scrimmage. In this case, we're in our dime look. Kyle Hamilton and Roquan Smith, you can see, are the two, quote, inside linebackers. But we're oftentimes letting the rush guys rush and the cover guys cover. I don't know where that change came from. There seemed to be less trickery involved from a mug/pass rush standpoint. The guys who are assigned to rush the passer, more often than not, they did. I think Draymond Jones has got an inside hand on Orlando Brown here, and Orlando Brown multiple times tries to swat him down towards the ground once Dre'Mont has his arms extended. In this case, Dre'Mont is able to maintain contact balance, drive Brown back, make contact with Burrow just as the ball was thrown. Roquan is underneath of this throw in this direction to Ja'Marr Chase. I think it's just high. I think Burrow just throws this football high. Maybe he had to get rid of it slightly earlier. I think that's one thing that we can definitely all agree on, or we can note, is that the pass rush for the Ravens kind of sped things up on Sunday against the Bengals, whereas the first time we faced them, Burrow, it seemed like oftentimes had all day to throw. Not going to show you the return by Marlon, but it seems to me like a little bit of a lazy lower half of his body by Burrow. But again, it could be impacted by the fact that Draymond Jones is getting immediate pressure. This is the same play from the all-22 angle. So Roquan is going to see two out, that's Chase Brown, and then try to take over one underneath. There almost ends up being this kind of like pick dynamic between our two defenders. Talking about Awuzie and I believe that's Marlon Humphrey. So it creates more space or separation for Chase than he perhaps would have had if Marlon and Awuzie don't run into each other. I'm talking about right now, how Awuzie is trailing. Roquan has got eyes on the quarterback Burrow. Just as Draymond Jones is starting to arrive, Burrow's getting rid of the ball. There's just nothing on from a lower half standpoint with his feet and his legs to drive this at all. And I wonder if that's the reason why it ended up being high. It's man-free for us, but I think Roquan pushed to that side, probably because that's where Chase is. Could also be because that's where Burrow looked initially post-snap. In any case, there's the path that Chase is on. Burrow's got to throw it over the top of Roquan. Roquan can't make a play on this ball here. Obviously, I think it's just a little bit high from a Joe Burrow standpoint. Maybe 2 or even 3 feet high. We're fortunate there, but it's the second possession, and they've gotten 2 trips close to our red zone. The first one ended in the sack by Tavius Robinson that I showed you. This one culminates in a pick. Compare yesterday's performance defensively on third downs to the first meeting. Cincinnati was 8 of 19 in Baltimore on third downs. I think 2 of 2 on fourth downs, or maybe it was 1 of 2. Yesterday, they were 3 of 15. Moving forward to the fourth defensive possession here, I think on the third, we forced a 3 and out. This one is going to be a penalty off the left side. It's on Orlando Brown, who is in the most unusual stance consistently that I've ever seen. They called it a hold. I almost really feel like it could be possibly hands to the face. But in any case, focus on Travis Jones here. He switched stances, and I'll show that to you in a moment, to basically run this club and swim move on Dalton Risner. Great balance in his feet. Watch him get his right foot over here to set up the club, and then being able to push off with his cleats with his right feet. He's not pushing off right foot, excuse me, he's not pushing off with the outside foot. He's actually pushing off the inside foot, and that kind of sets up the swim. Loses his balance slightly, and then able to get a quarterback hit on Joe Burrow. This one ended up being incomplete. I don't know about you, but as this play finished and I saw the hit by Tavius Jones and the penalty, I thought, okay, well, they're going to start, here we go. They're going to start getting us with flags. But you can see he's in a right-hand stance, initially, and then he switches to a left-hand stance. I think that's because he knew the move that he was going to set up or that he was going to utilize. Again, it's a 1st and 10, so maybe he saw something in the offensive lineman's stance that indicated pass to him, and that's why he switched to a left-handed stance. Like I said, there's a hold there on Orlando Brown that pushes things back, so I don't even know that play necessarily counts from a statistical designation. That could be why in the reaction video last night I indicated that we had 11 quarterback hits, and now this morning I wake up and it looks like they've changed it to 10. This is 2 plays later, again, onto that 4th possession. By the way, I should have said we're up 7-0 at this point. So there's going to be a penalty downfield on the Bengals. I don't know where this has come from. The level of physicality and some of the things that we're doing, they're things I've complained about for the better part of a year plus. So this is Draymond Jones lined up on the inside. This is Kyle Vanoi. Watch what they do to Chase Brown. It just so happens that this is a designed underneath screen, in my opinion. And that's why when Joe Burrow gets out here, he doesn't attempt to throw the football. Watch how Brown goes through here, basically through the B gap. He gets high load. First by Vanoi, who I think is basically running his pick stunt. But it to me looks like Vanoi is picking the guard here so that Draymond Jones can loop around. So this may just be fortunate, or some people would call it lucky. I'll run it through multiple times. That's a violent collision for Chase Brown. 2 big, strong human beings, in this case Vanoi first, and then Draymond Jones second. They absolutely wipe him out. And it's my opinion that that's the reason why when Burrow gets out here, he's got no one to throw the football to, unless you're talking about, maybe Jamar Chase on the backside. But these guys are blocking. So Burrow knows he can't throw the football downfield because those guys are blocking. So he eventually throws it away. This is subversive. This is, I don't know if you like this, you may not. It's quite possible that something like this could come back to haunt you a little bit later. Basically, Draymond Jones does not need to make contact with Joe Burrow here, but he's letting him know he's there. And he does it in a way that's quite savvy and veteran. Kind of turns and ensures that he uses his shoulder for contact and then even falls over him. Am I saying that Dre'Mont fell on him on purpose? I don't know. I just know how it worked out. It's if you ever spent a lot of time playing basketball, the defenders that put hands on you constantly make contact, even in needless situations. They're the worst guys to play against. I think Draymond Jones is from a different time. He plays the game what you would call the right way. If it's 1985, 1995, or 2005, nowadays people are going to refer to that as dirty. I love this group. Tavius Robinson, Draymond Jones, Tavius Jones, and Kyle Vanoi in pass rush situations. That was a 3rd and 19. I think we're dropping out to like a kind of pseudo cover 3 here. There's the middle of the field free safety. And then, 4 underneath droppers. Call it what you want down here at the bottom with I think that's Roquan Smith kind of matching up with Jamar Chase underneath. Letting the rush guys rush and the cover guys cover on 3rd and 19, that's nothing big. But this dynamic seemed to show up more yesterday against the Bengals than it did so far this year. In some of these situations, we're more physical, perhaps accidental or just recognizing it during the play, but some, like the one that I just showed you, it almost seemed intentional. We, of course, took a 14-0 lead at the half. We've moved now into the 3rd quarter, opening possession of the 3rd quarter, in fact, for Cincinnati. And they've got the ball past midfield, which they're able to do, multiple times against us so far this year. So we're in a dime look with Hamilton and Roquan set up as the inside linebackers. I'll give you the end zone angle of this one in a moment. So this is a stunt by Vanoi and Tavius Jones. So Tavius Jones, illustrated by the purple path, he's going to work upfield through the B gap. Vanoi upfield initially, and then stunting underneath. He's really good at this, he being Vanoi. Risner does a really poor job, their right guard, of kind of identifying this, but I think this is very similar to the way they ran their stunt against Roger Rosengarten and Daniel Falele, in the first matchup. Van Noy's rush is so delayed that Jones is already through the B gap before Van Noy has even committed in a way that would allow Risner to understand what's happening here. This is just a really nice stunt, if you ask me. But again, it's an organic four-man rush. Right around the time that Burrow starts to look up here to chase is when Van Noy shows up, and you get the end zone angle. So it totally breaks Burrow of any opportunity to throw the football. He's very lucky that this was not grounding, number one, or perhaps even worse. You've got Kyle Hamilton kind of hanging out here underneath. Burrow's trying to throw the football, I guess, beyond the line of scrimmage. It's really close to me. The ball, the line to gain is the plus 28. I wasn't able to draw a straight line there. My apologies for that. But the line to gain is the 28, but the line of scrimmage is the plus 32. So this thing bounced, right around the 32. He's fortunate that it was declared or determined to be just past the line of scrimmage, but also that no one settles under that football. That sets up a 4th and 4, which I thought was one of the key moments of the game, like I said, early in the third quarter. Let's give you the end zone angle of this one. Ball's on the right hash, and like I said, we're in our dime look. So Kyle and Roquan are communicating something here. And then Travis Jones going to work upfield on a B-gap rush, and because of the width of Van Noy, the hesitation of his rush path, again, very similar to what I think Miles Murphy used against us the first time that we played them. Risner can't pick this up, and his body gets completely turned, and that results in him being incapable of picking this up. Van Noy moving past, Risner trying to hold. It's over at this point. Possibly contact to the helmet up here by Orlando Brown. It seems to be his default thing to do, to get his hands up near the face mask against edge rushers that end up, underneath his pad level. I think this is a poor decision by Burrow. I recognize that some people will not describe it as such. Hey, he's trying to avoid a sack and throw the football away. There's a time and a place to do that, and I just feel like with second-level defenders, especially, this is about a step and a half from being a pick six if Kyle Hamilton is able to see it and be a yard and a half closer to us on the screen or closer to Burrow, such that he can settle under this football. It's over at that point. Compare that to the pick six / handoff lateral that Kyle Van Noy and Alohi Gilman executed later. I think Burrow's decision-making has started to break down somewhat in this game. All right, there's a lot going on this one. This is the ensuing play. After that one was ruled incomplete. Of course, Kyle Van Noy was lobbying the refs and talking a little bit of trash to Joe Burrow, telling him that it was going to be ruled grounding. So that sets up this 4th and 4, and we show man. So the tight end works across Gesicki, and you can see that Marlon is trailing him or tracking him. So Burrow sees man. Remember what I said earlier about Burrow having his hands in the jersey pocket so much? And because he's in the shotgun, because of their system, he wants to survey and then make a decision about what play to run or any adjustments. Once he gets ready to snap the football, I'm talking about right here, putting his hand in his mouth, probably making sure that his fingers are, have enough stickiness to be able to throw the football. It's 4th and 4, so it's an obvious pass attempt. Then Awuzie sees that, and he thinks, okay, the next movement, he's going to be snapping the football. So that's what gives this away to Burrow, meaning that it's not man. Did Burrow know that it was a Tampa 2? Maybe. I have no idea about their scouting. Obviously, there's no way to tell that. But because his hands were out earlier, Awuzie, as soon as he sees this the second time, that little bit of a fake or whatever you want to call it, he takes off because he's dropping to a half-field delineation. So what I mean is Awuzie's path is to get to a half-field defender up here, basically half-field safety. Gilman going to become the half-field safety to the bottom of our screen. Flat defender Wiggins, flat defender flat defender up here. I believe that's Starks, a safety. So we're making it look like man with the safety out in the flats, and then we're going to drop to a Tampa 2. Pretty cool if you ask me. Does Burrow know that's Tampa 2? Like I said, I have no idea. He just knows that it's not man at this point. We do get another win from Draymond Jones. It's the same stunt. He's going to bounce off the left guard and redirect to Burrow, basically end up with another quarterback hit as Burrow's throwing the football. Like, the line to gain is the 28, and Chase's in cut. I mean, if you know it's Tampa 2, Then you throw this football to Chase. He catches it somewhere in this area, probably gets down so Kyle Hamilton doesn't deck him, and they've got a first down. It's a violent finish by Draymond Jones, to be honest with you. And the pass rush consistently, I felt like, helped out the coverage element. Roquan is running underneath of this vertical by Gesicki. That's the choice that Burrow made to attack vertically. I feel like Awuzie and Roquan put themselves in pretty good position here to defend this route. It does hit Gesicki in the hands. Roquan kind of expanded in a horizontal manner and then kind of jade his path to match Gesicki's vertical or seam, if you will. And so perhaps that caused Gesicki to widen it slightly and be a half a step behind. Burrow's throwing the football, like I said, under some pressure, under some duress. You can see that's Draymond Jones, laying on top of him right there. It's a great job of the Ravens playing, making it look like man, playing zone. On a cold day like that, like I said, the quarterback is going to, or you want the quarterback, I should say, to try to fake out the defense at times in terms of how he's going to snap the ball or when he's going to snap it. This is the same play from the end zone angle. Like I said, I believe that it ends up being a Tampa 2, and the motion and everything has already occurred here. I screen record. So Awuzie, you can see him, is right here. And he'll start moving, and that's when Burrow stops everything, makes some kind of check. Is he checking the routes? Is he telling the guys, hey, I think this is zone, or at least it's not man? Who knows? But certainly communicating something. Here's what they're doing against the left side of the offensive line. So T. Jones is going to loop around late after a violent pick by Draymond Jones on the left guard. You can see he collisions the left guard, totally dislodges him. Travis Jones did a nice job, if you ask me, of setting that guy up. So watch Travis Jones' hands on the outside, not necessarily holding, but he's forcing that guy to deal with him. The left guard tried to ID it too late, and Burrow's got to throw the football right now. He's been sped up ever so slightly on some of these plays. I think this is another one. Dre'Mont, in the lead-in I talked about it. I think we should, try to extend this guy at least for another year, if not two, if he continues to play like this. I got no idea what he's like in practice or anything like that or meetings, but to me, what he's given us on the field so far has been exactly what we needed once we traded Odafe Owe and then Tavius Robinson gets hurt. Those guys put on a clinic yesterday, attacking the quarterback, getting after Burrow, putting him on the ground, and basically, I think, wearing him down physically and mentally. At the time of that incompletion, we were up 14-0, first possession of the third quarter. We're now up 17-0 after the disappointing play where Lamar finds Zay Flowers in the back right corner of the end zone. Clearly could have been a touchdown to go up 21-0, but we settle for a field goal and make it 17-zip. Seventh possession now, it's a 3rd and 8, and a frustrating situation, I think, for Joe Burrow. So we are now in a mug look. But the one thing I really like about all of this, at least on Sunday, is generally, post-snap, we were letting cover guys drop out and rushing with Vanoi, Mike Green, Draymond Jones, Travis Jones, Tavius Robinson, the guys who we pay money to get after the quarterback. Vanoi is on another, dedicated pick stunt here, if you ask me. It's him and I believe Tavius Robinson up to the top. So you can see how these guys take off here. Robinson tries to engage that left guard the same way that Travis Jones did. Really violent pick by Vanoi, dislodges him, but Tavius Robinson unable to get there. We've dropped out into what I would describe as a cover 3, possibly a cover 3 match. And what I mean when I say match is that Wiggins is going to match or run with Chase there, and then I think this is Tampa, who looked pretty good in some of the snaps that I watched as an outside corner once Awuzie went down, and then Marlon had an injury situation for a while as well. 4 under, 3 deep, middle of the field by Starks, and look, Starks is running that from lining up basically at inside linebacker. Have we tricked Joe Burrow? I don't know, but we're in a sound coverage alignment post-snap. Compare this to the touchdown to Jaylen Warren last week that Aaron Rodgers threw. I mean, he really didn't have to throw it. He could have scooped the ball over there. So really great job, if you ask me, of putting the players in the positions they need to be in based on their individual skills and talents. We've got everything pretty much locked up. Once Burrow starts to scramble, I think that's Gilman and Kyle Hamilton there. And then Vanoi is chasing. Burrow scrambles for a short gain. They end up having to punt. I watched Burrow's reaction from the end zone angle. He looked really frustrated after this play. I do want to point out one thing. I kind of talked about it in the reaction video. It's what we were doing with Gilman oftentimes when he had Chase to his side. Subtle, perhaps, but taking away in-breaking routes, really helping out the outside corner to Chase's side. I don't know why we haven't been investing in these types of things more so this year, not just against Ja'Marr Chase, but others. Basically giving the corner some intel, forcing the release by the number one, in this case Chase, to go to the outside. I almost would kind of liken it to, body punches or body kicks, body blows in a boxing or mixed martial arts event or a fight where you're investing in attacking the body for certain guys and hoping to slow them down as the game goes on. Finally, this will be the last play that I'll talk about. This is the Vanoi interception and the Gilman touchdown return. Now, you'll see the end zone angle here in a moment. The running back had motioned out. And so that was obviously just Joe Burrow trying to find out, okay, is this going to be zone or man? We did have a player move out with him. Let me go to the, I actually don't have the end zone angle queued up. My apologies for that. But we did have a player move out, hedge to his side. I think it was Roquan. So that, I think, gave Burrow some intel that this is going to be man. He's technically right and wrong at the same time. This is the glitch blitz. So it's man on everyone. Now, Starks and Gilman are going to combo read 2 and 3 here. So to me, this is just man on one, no matter what. And then we're combo reading 2 and 3. The reason why I call it a glitch blitz is because in man, you're not supposed to have necessarily a low hole dropper unless it's an inside linebacker like Roquan Smith or someone like that. In this case, we drop out Vanoi and Tavius Jones after they occupy the left guard and the center. So Ja'Marr Chase's route down here to the bottom side, kind of a vertical release for a moment, and then he'll fade it up. The inside receiver, the number 3, Tanner Hudson, goes up the seam and then cuts over the middle late. And Gesicki is the target here by Joe Burrow. He's got the underneath drag and what I think would really just be a levels concept. In any case, we get immediate pressure from Tavius Robinson right in Joe Burrow's face. He's got another free run through the B gap, very similar to the sack that I showed you earlier. Why? How did that happen? Well, here's T-Rob lined up over the left tackle, Simpson as a potential outside rusher, and then you also have Vanoi, who could possibly be engaged or attack the guard. The center is allocated for Tavius Jones. So what we have done is it's just fool's gold for their offensive line. That's the nature of the glitch blitz. You want them to allocate the center for someone and the left guard for someone, neither of whom is going to rush. It's kind of like when it works out in your favor. It's almost like you're playing defense with 12 guys because you forced the offensive line to dedicate 1 or 2 linemen for underneath droppers who then are able to be in almost 2 places at once. Well, one place pre-snap and then another place post-snap. Here's the route by Gesicki underneath. Tavius Jones almost kind of runs around him, evades him, doesn't really try to make contact with him. Burrow, this is a poor job by Joe Burrow, in my opinion. I think he knew that it was man, or he suspected that it was man. And like I said, he's right and wrong at the same time. It's man, but Jones and Vanoi are dropping out. That's actually not accurate the way I drew it. They're stepping to the center in the case of Jones, stepping to the guard in the case of Vanoi. Another thing to mention is the read that Starks and Gilman give us here on 2 and 3, the 2 tight ends, Hudson and Gesicki. So you can see them communicating pre-snap. And then once the ball is put into play, Starks takes the vertical route because that's the leverage that he had. And then Gilman matches up with Gesicki. It's perfect from the standpoint that Tavius Jones at least disrupts his route or his path. Tavius Robinson, a violent hit on Burrow, and we're off and running. Man, those guys, Simpson, T-Rob, Vanoi, Roquan as well. I haven't talked about him, much in this video. They were ass kickers on Sunday. I don't know about you, but when I saw this, the first thing I thought of was maybe it wasn't a good idea for Ed Reed to be at practice on Friday. I think that there was some information that he showed up to practice, maybe of his own accord, or maybe he was asked to be there. I thought maybe it wasn't a good thing. And then once you see Gilman take off, because T-Rob, planted Joe Burrow on the ground, it's really over. All we got to do is make sure that none of these guys block in the back. The smart offensive players, when this happens, they try to draw that penalty. But this was a moment, again, throwback moment in my opinion, turning defense into offense. We don't block him in the back. Simpson and Hamilton are both making contact, I guess because it's a running back. If you turn and you see a 6 or a 7, is what we used to teach, if you turn or you see a 6 or a 7 or even a 5 as the first number, you don't block the guy because he's an offensive lineman. He's not going to be able to catch your athlete. In the case of Gilman, awesome moment, man, to go up 24-0. We didn't block him in the back. In addition, two guys, both Georgia football players, are flying downfield here, I guess maybe to celebrate. Who knows, what their motivation level was for that. Awesome moment to go up 24-0, shut out the Cincinnati Bengals after dropping a home game to them less than a month ago. There's so many elements to talk about from that one particular play. The D-line setup, right? Simpson, T-Rob, and Vanoi all being set up over the left guard and the left tackle in the center as well. Travis Jones occupying him. The interception from Vanoi dropping out. The handoff on the lateral. That's a special moment. It has not been a great season. It's not been a fun season at times, right? But that play to me, no matter really how the rest of the way works out, if we don't make the playoffs, still memorable that it's our first shutout of 2025. It's against Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and the Cincinnati Bengals, who've obviously given us problems recently. This was an old-school defensive Ravens performance, in my opinion. I think Zach Orr and those guys should relish it, and we should too, as fans. They're going to move on to preparation for the Patriots today in terms of film and designing a game plan, but they deserve all the credit that anyone can give them. Look, Burrow last week had just thrown for 284 yards and I think 4 touchdowns against the Bills. The Bills just kind of survive every week. It's 2 weeks in a row, right? We wiped out Cincinnati yesterday, and they were up 10 points on the Bills with 9 minutes left, 2 weeks ago at this point. The Bills have stormed back in the second half in consecutive weeks against the Bengals and the Patriots. This upcoming game against New England's at home, first of all. It'll be a measuring stick. If you want to get excited about the Ravens in 2025, it's late. And we all do. We want to get excited. You go out there and you beat the Patriots in anything close to this fashion from a defensive standpoint, then you can start to compare the results if you want. Meaning, Buffalo needed a miraculous comeback to beat New England. Now they're still 1 game behind in the AFC East. And then they were down 10 before ripping off 3 consecutive touchdowns against Cincinnati 2 weeks ago. My point is, as Ravens fans, we're waiting on the Steelers' result with Miami tonight to see whether we're tied or still 1 game behind. This defense, this defensive line, I think they played incredible, man. 3 sacks, 10 quarterback hits, multiple guys being physical with Burrow and their wide receivers. I only showed you one aspect of that, Gilman kind of jamming him from inside-out leverage. I wanted to focus on the defensive line here. The run game defense is still worthy of mention. Yes, Cincinnati got to 100 yards on 29 carries, but that's really misleading if you ask me. They ran the ball, I think, 6 times for 26 yards on the final drive when it's 24-0 and they basically gave up with 7.5 minutes left. The whole defense, Zach Orr first and foremost, deserves credit. Tavius Robinson returning, big factor. I think that Trenton Simpson adds a little layer of athleticism. There's some things he can do up front as a blitzer, lining up on the line of scrimmage and in coverage against running backs that maybe Buchanan cannot. The Draymond Jones, Kyle Vanoi, Tavius Robinson, and even Mike Green dynamic. That's a great group. Maybe it's not the statistical output that we wanted for all of 2025, so there'll be some opportunity to evaluate that for sure. But for at least 1 game, 60 minutes, those guys played fantastic. Roquan led the way with 14 tackles. Simpson, I think, had 9, and Gilman 8, as well as the defensive touchdown. They showed up to Cincinnati hostile, active, super prepared. To me, it seemed like we were less focused on tricking Joe Burrow with the mug looks and maybe more traditional at times, still trying to vary the coverage post-snap. I'm not saying we did not, but we didn't rely on the mug looks that, in my opinion, have actually ended up exposing us to negative outcomes so far in 2025. Certainly more organic four-man rushes. I showed you some of them here, and they worked more often, than we've seen occur in 2025. Does that continue next week against New England and then in Green Bay against the Packers, the ensuing game? I'm not sure. We had 3 sacks for only the second time this year. Anything along those lines, 3 sacks in a game, along with our coverage talent, who knows what's going on with Awuzie? I hope he's healthy. He's been playing fantastic. Anything along those lines, 3 sacks, even 7 or 8 quarterback hits in a game, improves the coverage dynamic tremendously, as we saw yesterday. It was a great game, fun to be a Ravens fan, at least for one day. And I tried to put out a video here emphasizing the defensive line's performance and impact. You guys let me know what you think of this one in the comment section, number 1. Number 2, if you think other Ravens fans would enjoy my thoughts on how Zach Orr's defense came to play, led by 4 or 5 of the defensive linemen, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.